make it logical if you say it in baby talk, Jeremy.
Is the gyro deviation evidence of Earth rotation?
It's evidence that supports that proposition.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The gyro deviation is evidence of Earth rotation. That's how I phrased it.
So in that case, then, according to you, all evidence of anything for anything ever, anywhere, ever is a fallacy. Oh dear. Not worked out too well, has it, this argument?
I said, no, it's not always a fallacy.
Okay, so how does it not be a fallacy? How can you have evidence for a proposition which does not meet your qualification for a fallacy? Go ahead. Tell me any truth proposition with any piece of evidence that I just can't turn into a fallacy in the same way that you did.
Water exists.
Okay, what's the evidence for water existing? That's the proposition. What's the evidence?
I'll put you in some.
Okay, if wet, then water. That's a fallacy.
In water, then water exists.
If wet, then water. That's a fallacy.
If you're in water, then water exists. You think that's a fallacy?
No, I don't think it's a fallacy. I don't think saying anything is evidence of something is a fallacy. I think that's idiotic nonsense that only a fucking moron would try and suggest is true. And a fucking idiot who's just desperate to make quantum erasers utter bullshit be real in some way. That's why, and you know it's not true, Jeremy, that's why 5 times you had to try and switch it back to proof instead of evidence for.
Okay, I phrased it with your evidence word, if you like that better.
Yeah, but you didn't like that either. You're just fucking wrong, because as I've said, that in that case, if that were true, anything would be, any proposition supported by any piece of evidence would be a fallacy, according to you. How is it not?
Because I just gave you one with water.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, if water exists, I could put you in some, and what's going to be your fallacy?
No, you can't put me in some. You can't put me in some. No.
Why?
Because you've got to present me with a piece of evidence that supports your proposition.
All right, go turn your bathtub on.
No. I don't do anything. You present me with evidence.
Of water existing?
Yes.
I mean, we'll have to meet somewhere, and I could.
No, we don't. No. Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, so the only way.
Or you could just go turn your sink on.
Right, now I get it. I understand that. So what you're saying is now that it's fallacious until you meet, and then it's not fallacious.
Well, it's a genetic fallacy.
Or you could go turn your sink on and just
No. You don't get out of it by getting me to go and get in some water and then saying, hey ho, deny water. No, we're in the debate. I present a proposition to you and support it with evidence. You present this proposition to me and support it with evidence. And have me not call it a fallacy in the same way as you did, you mong.
All right, have you ever taken a shower or had a sip of water?
Jeremy, that's a genetic fallacy.
Have you ever had a sip of water?
You can't have him do something that's a genetic fallacy.
I won't have him do anything right now, but have you ever had a sip of water, taken a shower, brushed your teeth, washed your face, seen a babbling brook?
No, I am from Mars. I have just arrived here. You need to present me with evidence. It's not... Have you experienced this evidence yourself before? You need to present the evidence. And again, you're on another tactic now to get yourself out of this shithole that you
just used the tactic that you were from Mars. What are you talking about?
Well, because you were trying to make it so that I go and gather. You're trying to make it so that I go and personally experience the evidence for your proposition. And that is not what happens in a debate in the way that we are having it here. You make a proposition and support it with some evidence.
Yeah,
like I did.
Exists. All right, I'll get you some evidence of water existing. Hold
Go
on.
ahead. Let's see it.
Okay.
Come on.
By the way, that's not
right
water.
now. Hold on.
Whatever you show me, I'm going to say it's not water.
Yeah, I'm going to say if photo, water exists. That's a fallacy.
If photo, CGI.
No, if photo cartoon, if video CGI.
So just
That's my fault. That's my fault.
I don't know how you can do this, Jeremy. I really don't.
Well, I got an 8-hour video of a waterfall relaxing meditation. You need this. You need
No,
to
so
watch
if video, if something exists, is that what you're saying? Is that your fallacy?
No, we can have water. I can show it to you. You can touch it, taste it. I'm sure you've brushed your teeth or taken a shower once.
No, we're back to me personally experiencing the evidence again, aren't we?
Yeah, but you have. You have though. So what's
Doesn't make any difference. That's
Jem,
not
have you ever taken a shower?
It doesn't make any difference.
Have you ever taken a shower?
It isn't about me, Jeremy. What I have or haven't experienced has nothing to do with this. You don't know that, do you, coming into this debate? You don't know. I might be someone from a desert who's never seen water before.
You wouldn't be alive right now.
You don't know that. I might have had it fed to me intravenously, and I might be blind. Might have never seen water.
All right. Either way, your whole shit's fallacious, and you're just
Jeremy,
that's why you got so worked up.
According to you, because you're saying something so utterly ridiculous. That is, if somebody says that I believe this proposition is true, and this is my reason for believing this proposition to be true, that is automatically a fallacy, and that is ridiculous.
No, it's a fallacy because it could be something else. Like if I ate 10 pizzas thing, I'm full.
But again, now you're sneakily making it a proof without actually saying the word proof. It doesn't matter.
What do you mean?
All I'm saying is it supports a proposition. It doesn't mean that has to be the only proposition it supports. It doesn't mean that at all. You're making it that. Why does that have to be true?
You guys make it that when you say it's evidence of Earth rotating. It's not evidence of Earth rotating. It's evidence that the sky's moving and it's causing deviation in the gyro.
Well, what? You could present it that way, yes.
Yeah, there you go.
You need to show evidence.
Not evidence of Earth rotation. Evidence.
Now we have one piece of evidence and two conflicting propositions. So what do we do now?
I don't know. It's clearly not evidence for your bullshit spinning.
Is your proposition a fallacy?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's not evidence of either one. Because it could be either one. If it was evidence of something, listen, if it was evidence of something, it couldn't be either one. It would be evidence for the thing.
No, that's not true. That's ridiculous. That's completely and utterly ridiculous.
Is it evidence for Earth rotation?
Thing. So evidence can only be evidence for one thing exclusively and nothing else.
Well, is it evidence for the sky rotating or the Earth rotating?
So if I find some broken glass on the floor and above it is a window which has been broken, I can only assume it's only evidence that the window was broken, and it can't possibly be evidence that the window was also made of glass.
I don't know what you said, but is the gyro evidence for the sky rotating or Earth rotating? Could be either one. It
could be either.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's.
How does that make it a fallacy? So if some piece of evidence supports two propositions, both of those propositions are automatically fallacious.
No,
is that the stupid shit you're coming out with now?
No, it's fallacious because it could be. Come on, Jem, relax. It's fallacious because it could be either one. It could be.
That's what he just said.
How does that make it a fallacy?
Do you not know the affirming the consequent if P then Q fallacy?
That's not an affirming the consequent.
I know that bullshit that you've learnt off QE, but how does that relate in any way to what we're talking about now?
Okay, if gyro deviation, you really need me to phrase it for you again? Because I've done it like 10 times.
Jeremy, I understand the silly sentences with the words missing for no reason. I understand that, okay? But how does that change this? That is an idea that is reliant upon the idea being presented as proof. for the 6th time, Jeremy. Nobody is saying this is proof.
I didn't say it. I didn't use the words proof. I stopped using that word. You have some weird problem with the word proof.
Go on then, apply your affirming the consequence. Let's have your silly sentences with words missing, because that makes it real. Go on, let's hear it.
What words missing? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the if, P, Q, that bullshit.
Yeah, the fallacy. The bullshit. It's the fallacy you're using. It's not bullshit. I know it's bullshit because you use it all the time.
What? I don't use it ever.
Fallacy.
I don't ever use that ever. Never ever bother to use that. It's not part of the normal conversation. No need for me to do it. It's just a daft, silly, idiotic thing so that morons like you will be impressed by quantum eraser and think that that's all logical and
you're saying
makes it all real and right.
If you're saying that the gyro deviation is evidence for the Earth rotating,
yes,
you're using the fallacy whether you know it or not.
How? Again, what fallacy am I using and how?
Affirming the consequence. If
how?
P then you,
how? When there is no consequence.
I'll phrase it for you.
There is no consequence.
Are you ready?
Go ahead.
Okay. If I am full, P, then I ate 10 cheeseburgers. Q. If
we're not talking about you and cheeseburgers.
If gyro
now you're down to personal experience.
If gyro I wasn't done.
Well, stop talking about cheeseburgers.
I'm putting it in the logical fallacy.
No, I didn't mention cheeseburgers.
You said you wanted the logical fallacy.
Yes, and I didn't mention cheeseburgers at any point.
Let me finish. This would have been over with. But you jumped in like a lunatic. You need to calm down. First of all, this is no way to act. Do you want the 8-hour video of the waterfall? It's very soothing.
Antagonizing the server owner will not get you anything. Just go on.
I don't even know where I was. Listen,
Jeremy, if P, Q, then Q. If P, then Q fallacy or argument that you want to make is true, Gem would have to be saying if the gyro picks up deviation, then the Earth is rotating. That's a proof. Right. It's proving it. But he's not. He's supplying evidence for something. He hasn't proved anything. He hasn't committed the if P then Q. He's just supporting something with evidence at the moment.
But it's not evidence for only that thing. It's also evidence for the skies rotating.
That's why it's not viewed in a vacuum. It's not just one piece of evidence, Jeremy. It's the collective evidence which gives it the validity.
There goes that piece down the drain.
No, Jeremy.
Why? Hold on. Why though? Stop. Why?
Because it's evidence for another thing too.
Yeah, why does it? But so if evidence could support two propositions, it must automatically be ignored and we pretend it's not there. Why?
No, you're not.
Why would we do that? Why is that a logical thing to do?
You're not going to use it for your piece of evidence when it's my piece of evidence too.
Why can't I use it?
Because it's my piece of evidence also.
You can use it. Why can't I use it?
I find that we'll both be committing fallacies. That's
why. Why is it a fallacy?
Because it doesn't provide evidence for either one, because it works for both of us.
What fallacy is that says each piece of evidence can only ever support a single proposition? What fallacy is that?
If gyro deviation, then evidence for Earth rotation.
Can I join in?
I'm done with you.
Okay, can I join in? Okay, your fallacy or your modus tollens is a little bit misphrased. If Earth is rotating, then a gyroscope should precess thusly at a given latitude. Gyro precessed thusly at a given latitude, therefore, Earth is rotating. How's that a fallacy?
Or the sky's rotating.
No, actually, that's not.
Could be the sky. Could be you.
No, Jeremy. You said it many times. I have to directly correct you. No, the gyro doesn't give a fuck about what's happening in the air. It cares about its angular acceleration. That's all it cares about internally. It doesn't give a fuck what the air is doing around it. It doesn't care what if there's an ether, it wouldn't be affecting it. It cares about its own angular acceleration. So no, it's not evidence for that, Jeremy.
All you guys know is that
it doesn't have anything to do with the air.
All right, settle down. You know all we know is that. Are you on my side?
Yeah.
Respond to Biodual.
Yeah.
Because he said
respond to
the
me
air. We're
first.
talking about gravity. We're talking about the effects of the celestial objects.
Oh, that was Brandon. My bad. Your mic's fucked up. Go ahead, bro. Yeah, I didn't even know it was you. Go ahead. My bad, bro.
But admittedly, those celestial objects do impact things on the ground. It doesn't have anything to do with the air, Biodual.
But that's what was said.
I could take my modus tollens and expand.
Oh.
Gyroscopes measure movement, and then go into the whole. If the Earth is rotating, then the gyroscope should precess, and at a given latitude, it does rate, and then therefore the gyroscope precess
But Moyok,
does rate. Therefore, it should be rotating. The Earth is rotating.
are they going to hear what you've said or just pretend they listened?
I think they pretend to listen.
The
Well, it's
point is, you guys.
As complex as you need. You tell now. Do objects moving around gyroscopes move my rotational plane or my gyroscope? No.
Listen, all you know is you have a gyro.
And how a gyro works.
A gyro that. All you know is you have a gyro that is measuring deviation when it's still. So you're going to jump to conclusions and say, "Oh, nothing else could be affecting this," but.
One piece of evidence among the entire body of evidence that's completely consistent with us.
Body of evidence that we tear apart all day.
Parts of a rotating sphere.
You guys got nothing, bro.
Jeremy, you don't understand how a gyro works. So to claim that it's detecting something when it's not is fallacious reasoning in and of itself. If you actually understood how a gyro works and how it provides this deviation information, you would acknowledge and understand that everything outside everything physical outside of this chamber of a gyro won't be affecting it. The only thing it's going to be affected by is angular acceleration.
So
They would have to demonstrate. They'd have to demonstrate how the ether, wind, or whatever bullshit they want to make up would affect the gyro.
Not impacted by gravity. This gyro is completely divorced from gravity, or what?
It depends on the gyro that you're talking about. If we're going to talk about Bob's gyro, then it's going to be as far as I know, it's void of gravity in its measurements. It's going to detect angular acceleration, and that'll be it. When you talk about mechanical gyros, that's going to play a big part with gravity.
So this gyro, does it float? You set it anywhere in there?
No, this light will travel through the vacuum tubes, and there will be deviations depending on an acceleration force imparted on it.
And the light's not affected by gravity.
As I said, light is affected by gravity, but when we talk about these measurements here, gravity won't have that effect that you want it to. It would be too small for it to affect.
That's your claim, man. Like I said, this is all an affirming the consequent fallacy because I don't in actuality know what's going on.
Right? No. That's the thing. That's your ignorance, not your claim to my ignorance. It is your ignorance because I do understand how these things work.
It's your Dunning-Kruger, let's call it. Because you think you know what's going on, but you don't. Okay,
Jeremy, how much experience do you have with the gyro? Since we're going to talk about personal ignorance, how much experience do you have on a gyro?
A laser ring gyro or
any gyro? How about that? Any gyro?
I mean, I had one in a museum when I was like 10.
So your experience consists of possibly looking at it as you walked by as a child.
Let's just let the words I'm saying. Let's let the words I'm saying be the judge of my experience with the gyro.
No. I'm asking you, and if that's your experience, that's your experience.
Let's let the words I'm saying be my evidence for what I do or don't know about it. Okay.
Right. So your words that you just said is this one time in a museum when I was a kid.
Don't worry about my experience with the gyro.
No. Because you claimed my personal ignorance, I'm claiming your personal ignorance, and that's what you said. That's your experience. So I'm going to let you know.
I'm going to activate Biodual's noise suppression just to get this out. Jeremy, noise suppression, please. That's all.
Oh, thank you. So
could be it's damn stubborn people when a mod tries to break in and get somebody's attention.
Get it together. The point is, we know temperature is affecting Bob's gyro. Do we not?
Yes, because he didn't set up the gyro in a air-conditioned environment as he should,
right. So
as all gyros should.
So when you say it only changes due to angular momentum, did you lie to us, or do you have Dunning-Kruger because temperature also affects the gyro?
What do you think? If there's no angular,
I think you got Dunning-Kruger, and it's clear
Jeremy,
to the whole room right now.
Say it louder. Say it louder. You know what's happening with the temperature issues? It's that because there is an acceleration in the first place, temperature is going to change the rate at which this deviates.
Right.
If the rate is 0, it doesn't matter what the temperature is doing. It won't detect anything. The fact that temperature affects it means that there is an acceleration at all. God damn, Jeremy. So fucking dumb sometimes.
So we've got temperature affecting the gyro.
Right. Did you hear any of the words that I just said?
Yeah, you had Dunning-Kruger, bro. Listen, you got Dunning-Kruger big time, okay? You think you know things when you don't.
The answer is no. Jeremy, he said
you
that.
know things when you don't, and it's obvious to the whole room right now that
Jeremy,
you have
you're
Dunning-Kruger.
doing exactly what Gem yelled at you for.
What? Nobody
You are
yells at me.
screwing
I'm
up the
not a
words.
child.
Hang on. Yeah, Jeremy. I'm stopping
Bio
you
clearly
for a reason.
explained it, Jeremy. The only thing the temperature is going to do is affect the accuracy of the reading. It will not produce a reading by itself.
Correct.
You don't know that.
Temperature.
I do know that, Jeremy.
You
I
don't
happen to know that.
How much
It's in the
experience do you
manual
have
for
with
the
it?
damn
How much
gyro.
experience?
Gyros. Would you?
How much experience do you
I've
have
got
with
quite a
a
bit. Would you like to?
with a
Would
laser
you like
ring
to
gyro?
explain? Would you like to explain the right-hand rule to me, please?
You have a fiber optic. You have experience with a fiber optic gyro.
I'm
or
talking
whatever
about fiber optics. I'm talking about the simple stuff, the regular mechanical gyro. Would you tell me about the right-hand rule, please, sir?
I don't have much experience with a mechanical gyro. It's not important. We're talking about Bob's gyro right now.
Oh, okay. Then you've got experience. You got a lot of experience with a ring laser gyro, right?
Let the words that are coming out of my mouth be the judge of that. I told you.
You have no experience?
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
That's
It's
the impression
relevant. I know what I'm.
that you have zero experience.
You guys have Dunning-Kruger.
I'm getting the same impression.
Authority. And yet you speak with authority.
Jeremy, for me personally, if you want to claim Dunning-Kruger and ignorance, for 4.5 years, I worked on this. And for 4.5 years, if I were wrong or didn't understand, pilots died. Knock on wood, a pilot never died under my care and the knowledge that I gave to an aircraft. So yes, my experience and results show that I know what I'm talking about. So I'm waiting for you to show any inkling of having a knowledge about this system.
Okay, you just got done telling Brandon that the only thing that affects the gyro was angular movement. And clear, were you right on that, or were you wrong?
Did you not hear me earlier? Because there was a specific explanation. I'm not going to give it again, but were you listening?
Yeah, because you were fucking wrong, dude. Listen, you have Dunning-Kruger to the highest level.
Great rebuttal. You're not adding anything to the conversation except for personal insults.
Except for
What do
pointing
you
out
have to
how
add?
you were clearly wrong about things affecting the gyro.
And what was my response?
To when you were wrong?
No, what was my response? You said that
Your response to when you were wrong and the temperature does affect the gyro, so does gravity, so do who knows what else.
What was my response, Jeremy? It was very specific.
You said light doesn't affect the gravity. Gravity doesn't affect the light that much. You also said temperature only makes it rotate or won't make it rotate or deviate from the rotation. That
temperature won't cause it to detect angular acceleration. It will cause it to increase the rate or decrease the rate at which it's accelerating. But it won't go from 0 to a value strictly on temperature change.
Fair to say that
this ring laser gyro is in a perfect vacuum, or is there some air in it?
Obviously, perfect vacuums don't exist. So how about you
so we got air in there. I can make up a list of shit.
Is a fiber optic one in a laser in a vacuum?
I can make a huge list of shit.
The tubing, vacuum tubes.
I can make a huge list of shit that could be affecting this gyro. Okay,
right,
the point is,
just a big
we're
list
still
of
at
shit.
the phase. We're still at the it's things that can affect the gyro. It's not shit. It's your variables that aren't controlled.
So you'd have to demonstrate how these things can affect the gyro.
Proper setup.
Don't have your variables under control. It's a classic theme I've noticed with you guys. Uncontrolled variables.
Jeremy, do you remember when I said Bob did it incorrectly? Do you remember when I said Bob did it incorrectly because he didn't do it in an air-conditioned environment? Do you remember that, Jeremy?
Uncontrolled variables.
Jeremy, do you remember when I said clearly from the beginning, before you brought up this temperature thing, that I said Bob did it incorrectly by not doing it in an air-conditioned environment? Do you remember this?
No.
You're saying you should set
That's
up
what I
the
fucking
equipment.
thought, Jeremy. I'm done with you.
So you're saying that you should have to set the equipment up as specified by the manufacturer in order for it to get accurate results? Did we have to say that?
Saying there's a lot of things dealing with the gyro that could be causing this deviation.
So you need to list one of these lots of things.
Gravity.
All right.
Air in the vacuum of the light.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll make a list and I'll get back to you guys.
We can vary gravity by moving to places that have higher levels of gravity. You know, just measure by a magnetometer and see whether it changes.
Your mic sucks.
You suck.
You always test it and get back to us, Jeremy.
You're just grasping at straws, Jeremy.
Does gravity vary a lot on Earth, Jeremy?
Well, Jeremy did say that space flowing over the gyro could cause the deviation, so we have several different frameworks to possibly explore over a flat Earth.
Oh, fuck off.
Well,
How can it do it in a sealed environment?
The question, if you haven't explored that framework, we can just beg the question and say space is flowing around
the
go
do it.
unmoving flat Earth.
Let us know when you're done.
What's your test going to look like?
It would be the experimental framework to explain what's going on.
No, what's your test going to look like? What are you going to do?
Honestly, there's nothing you can even do for this. You got a gyro that's sitting still and it's deviating. All you can do is either say the Earth's spinning or the heavenly bodies are causing it to deviate, or some other uncontrolled variable that you guys don't have accounted for.
So both you and Brandon have proposed that space is, or the sky above is causing the gyroscope to deviate. What you need to do is actually substantiate that somehow.
Well, we see the sky deviating, therefore we know that it's the gyro deviation, because we see the sky rotating.
That's affirming the consequence. That's you doing the thing that you just said that we did. You are just now doing what you said that everybody else was doing.
I just tried to tell Jen that's what Jen was doing for the last half hour.
So how is the sky affecting the gyroscope?
How is Earth rotation?
Why are you deflecting?
Gyroscopes measure rotation. That's what they do.
Jeremy, you get these aren't put on the ground, right? They're generally placed in like, especially for the ring laser gyros, they're put in airplanes and things like that.
Who said that?
They don't measure linear acceleration.
Bro, are you a Glober? Because I'm interested in debating the Globers.
Yeah, you can't. That's because you can't deal with someone like me.
No, it's because I'm interested in debating the Globers, and I don't know what you're about. So
no, you're interested in sea lioning the Globers.
Are you making the Glober claims or no?
I don't need to make a Glober claim. It's just
then shut the fuck up. You're not in this, bro. You're not in this. You're not making any of the Glober claims.
He would probably be a Glober based off of his opposition against you, based off his activities.
He's a Glober. He just won't admit it. That way he doesn't.
Don't let him make
he
an
doesn't
argument.
have to back up any of the claims that they make. He just
But don't let him speak. That's how it's going to work, right?
Little to no contradiction.
Please explain why somebody not committing to a position on something somehow makes it invalid. He's addressing the topics that are on subject and discussing the results of them. Therefore, he's actually the more honest one right now, according to Flat Earth.
We'll let another Flat Earther take it. I'm interested in debating the Globers, so go ahead if anyone else wants to take it. Not Glober's question.
Well,
You're not actually debating.
defined based off of a very limited framework. So we're at the step where we're challenging the framework in which gravity was conceived, namely a vacuum nothingness where gravity was the only force available to pull everything into a Neoplatonic ball. If space is full of, energy, ether, or whatever, that framework becomes a little questionable. So I think we're at the framework stage, just like gravity is.
So while we follow Lemon down his rabbit hole, we have not come up with any mechanism by which the sky can affect the gyroscope.
Neither have we found a mechanism for how gravity can affect the gyroscope or whatever the heck you're talking about with the rotating ball either. Yet gravity is accepted unquestioningly and the ether is rejected off a few grounds. So I guess we're just going to have to fight, aren't we?
Well, gravity is questioned all the time. I mean, modern science questions itself. It asks the hard questions. It says, is this a real thing or is it not?
Modern pseudoscience. Pseudoscience. That's what pseudoscience does.
That's not pseudoscience. That would be
real science. Real science in the end,
would ask questions. They
real science in the end,
without doing experiments or doing something to question itself.
Real science in the end, you know for sure because you've just proven it. You validated your either your hypothesis or your null hypothesis. So
no, you gathered evidence. You gathered evidence.
No, you have proven
but
something.
You've never proven anything. You've
Yes,
you've only gathered more evidence. That's what science does. It doesn't just prove anything.
It doesn't prove things.
Anywhere in any science where it says this proves this.
That's completely ridiculous, Jeremy, and you know it is. People have already explained this to you over and over again. That's not
when you do a scientific experiment with natural science.
You are objectively wrong on this point. You are objectively wrong.
I'm in the middle of a sentence. Why are you?
And you're objectively wrong. I'll talk over you because you're talking over everybody.
You gotta let me get it
out. You keep talking over everybody.
Bro, you gotta stop talking while I'm talking. Dude, is there
I was talking first, and you
were not talking,
Jeremy.
and then I started talking.
I was.
You were not talking.
I was explaining to you.
Is there no mods in here or what?
I was explaining to you that we've already explained this to you over and over again.
All right, I'm out, guys.
You didn't respond to that.
You guys are muting me. I'm out. I'll see you guys later.
Over again. Run away,
bye, guys.
Flat Earther.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're not going to let me talk and you're going to fundy mute me, then what's the point of even being here?
Nobody muted you, dude.
Fundy talks over somebody says to hear what they say or interpret or process what they say. It's an emotional reaction where you just word vomit and don't stop talking.
The emotional reaction is him not stopping and listening to what I'm saying. That's the emotional reaction.
So
he's refusing to acknowledge what I actually said, and he's just completely changing the subject.
Well, science says that it doesn't prove everything, but on the other hand, it tries to limit the scope of proof by saying this is the framework and these are the only options we're going to explore. So in the framework where space was a vacuum nothing and gravity was the only game in town, it should have been updated the moment we discovered that space was full of forces, full of energy, and full of things that could cause what we deem gravity. That framework should have been updated centuries ago.
It is constantly updated. That's what dark energy and dark matter is all about, because they know there's something else out there that's causing more gravitational force than we can recognize.
Science is limited, like you said, Lemon.
But Sandley, have you noticed how he's changed from paradigm to framework?
They're the same thing with no difference.
No, they're not.
To show what the difference is and how it changes the discussion, you cannot. Yeah. So at that point, you're playing semantics because the same two words cover the phenomenon with no change in meaning and no change in actions based off the meaning.
That's not a paradigm.
Well, here we go in the definitions again.
How? No. Show me that you're not just playing semantics by showing the qualitative difference.
This isn't about semantics, Lemon. If you're going to go down that path, I'll keep going. But it wasn't about semantics. It's your interchanging fucking words that don't mean the same thing.
Defines the framework. We're working with a paradigm where space is nothing and the only energy or the only game in town, the only force in town is gravity to pull matter from the void. That's an old framework that doesn't even work with quantum mechanics, that admits that space is full of energy. So it's not a vacuum nothingness anymore. Therefore, the framework under which gravity was conceived changes dramatically. These theories need to be updated when the logical framework, paradigm, whatever the hell you want to call them, get an update. That's the point.
Word salad.
They're constantly updated, dude. Every day. You never heard of the dark what is it? The dark energy survey? Is that what it's called?
Before then we had a thing called ether to cover that.
No, you didn't, Lemon.
Dude, scientists, the same scientists that you're claiming are ignoring facts, are in search of the very thing that you're saying. Like, they're looking for why gravity doesn't work the way we expect it to in vast distances. They're doing that work right now. In the meantime, you're on Discord saying they're not doing it. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude?
Because they're trying to hold to the framework and the paradigm that came before, where gravity is making things into balls, and the only game in town to make things into Neoplatonic balls. That's not tenable if space is full of energy anymore. It's not tenable.
No, dude. And in these smaller scales, we see gravity working exactly as we expect it to. At the larger scales, it doesn't work that way. We're trying to figure out where the nuance is. That's what we're trying to do. But you can't just say gravity's completely wrong, because guess what? It works on the actually pretty large scales, like solar system wide. It works.
You jump the framework when it doesn't work. We don't have curvature on the Earth based off the laser test. We don't even have movement based off.
No, you don't throw everything else away, dude.
A vacuum nothingness, the way that they're trying to hold on to, despite the fact that they find stuff popping in and out of the vacuum and energy all around space. This doesn't work.
You don't throw away currently supported hypothesis because you have a mystery to solve. Like, why would you do that? There's no better hypothesis right now. If you come up with a better hypothesis, scientists throw away the old ones. That's how it works, dude.
Not because of their materialism and atheism. They're going to hold on to the ball because it makes the Bible a lie and allows Western Christians to abandon Christianity. So I'm going to go with ether flowing over the flat, motionless, and domed earth. That's what I'm going to go
You were
with.
talking about emotions earlier. Why do you have to make an emotional appeal to Satanists? You know, it doesn't even make any sense when there's Christian scientists. I mean, what are you talking about, dude?
That's like saying that they're Republicans. They're controlled by the left. The scientists that are Christians are under the control of Satano-atheists, and their paradigm is irrelevant. The moment their paradigm goes against their paradigm, they get the hose. They get the drumming.
That's a very interesting defamatory claim that you're making, but there's no evidence to support that.
There's loads. There was the creationist scientist who was saying that the Earth appears to be young based off of the age of these radiopolonium halos that are frozen in the granite, crystallizing them within minutes, as opposed to millions of years of heat and slag.
Right.
There's also the scientist who found young dinosaurs.
I know exactly what you're talking about. But there have been scientists that have offered alternate suggestions. In the meantime, there's tons of evidence showing that the Earth is old, and you're going to just throw all that away while you're claiming that, you know, modern day scientists are throwing one thing away that could be explained by
because of their internal inconsistencies. The aging methods that they use to make the Earth old and make the biblical narrative a lie is unreliable.
It's not an internal inconsistency. It's not an internal inconsistency. It's a mystery. We don't know how that could have happened, and it, you know, given the circumstances that creationists are providing. But there could have been different circumstances. That's what the creationists never like allow for, right? They want to like pigeonhole all the evidence and interpret it their way. And actually the creationists, like Kent Hovind, for example, are the ones that actually say, oh, well, the scientists are looking at the same evidence, they're just interpreting it a different way. Well, that's correct. And the creationists are looking at the same evidence and they're interpreting it a different way. But it doesn't mean one way is better than the other way. That doesn't mean anything just saying those things.
So
right?
both
you have to actually put in the work and try and figure out which side is correct. And one thing we do know is that we can see very clearly with radio telescopes that there are certain objects that we can triangulate that are 10,000s of light years away. That's already more than the 6,000 years that the creationists want to claim is the age of the Earth. I mean, and that's just using basic trick. You know?
Even that's questionable, though, because that has to assume that light is traveling in a uniform motion from point A to point B. We haven't gone the whole length of the thing to see the quality of the medium.
That's exactly right. We do make assumptions. We make assumptions about the homogeneous nature of the universe, and also we make assumptions about that certain physical rules or physics, works the same way here as it does there. Sure, we make those assumptions, but what better assumptions can you make? Like, hey, you can just say willy-nilly, oh, it must work differently out there. That's not science. That's just wishful thinking. And that's what creationists are doing, right? They're wishful thinking, but they're not providing evidence. But whenever you can literally provide evidence that shows you can draw a triangle that shows that a particular star is 10,000 light years away, 11,000 light years away. They do that with the radio telescopes. I forgot what it's called now, but it's actually a form of spatial geodesy, I think it's what it's called. But they can literally measure it just using trigonometry that it's 11,000 light years away.
The trigonometry is questionable because they assume that the Earth moves thousands of miles in space, making one of the bottom legs of their triangle longer than it needs to be, making the distances astronomically bigger than they need to be. So that's where we need to talk about the paradigm and the framework by which we make these theories and make these assumptions. That's where the legwork really comes in with the science. The theoretical side, where we're saying we're willing to make these theories but not these others because of this bias, that bias, or this preference or that preference. And this evidence and or that evidence. And the consistent interpretation of this and or the inconsistent interpretation of that.
Do you ever shut up a sentence early, Lemon?
Yeah,
I just let him finish the whole time.
You're just saying that they're making assumptions about, do we know, can we tell what our physical location is, and can we tell how far we've traveled in, say a month? Can we tell how far we've traveled in space in a month? Sure we can.
But no optical experiment proves that the Earth moves, not at the rate that they're saying. At best, we're moving slower or we're not moving at all, and at best you have a gentle ether wind flowing over the Earth. They don't get 30 kilometers per second of ether drift. They're lucky if they get 1 to 10. So that's not internally consistent. For us to tell that we're moving, we need to be moving through a substance. You destroyed the framework by which we could offer evidence that we're moving through space by saying that we're no longer moving through a substance. If we're not moving through a substance, then what the hell are we moving through, if anything? And how can it offer proof that we're moving in the first place if technically there's not supposed to be anything there? This is illogical.
On one hand, you're saying that we're moving through ether. On the other hand, you're saying you can't give me a jar of it and show me how to manipulate it, touch it, measure it, or anything. Like, you're just saying that they're making assumptions while you're making an assumption that there's an ether that you personally have never touched. You have no idea if there's an ether or not.
The assumptions. Okay, you're saying that gravity exists. The power of gravity. You just reason back to gravity as a force.
Hold on. Gravity is not an assumption. Gravity is an observation. Those are two different things.
We don't see gravity pulling stuff in the balls. That's false. We infer and assume that that's the case. But we don't have a jar of it. That's an inference.
No, we do see that. First of all, we do see that. Second of all, what in a local context, right? I can pick something up and let it go and see that it falls towards the Earth. That's gravity. That is an observation.
But some stuff goes up, and then you have to pat it with buoyant.
There's something that's causing this cup that I've just picked up to drop to my desk when I let go of it. And that thing, we're putting a name on it. That name that we're putting on that observation is called gravity. That's the name we've given that observation.
But they already went to space with space-time curvature and other stuff. So by their behavior, it looks like they're looking in space now, as opposed to something pulling to the center of matter. So they've already changed their experimental framework by their behavior and said basically that this force, whatever it is coming from space, not necessarily the object. So by their suspicious behavior, it appears that they've already by default said that it's the ether that is responsible for this behavior.
I didn't follow any of that, so.
What does anybody expect to get out of this? I mean, that was such bullshit, what he just said.
Yeah.
Kurt, you're not listening. This is for you. This is for people who are thinking to follow.
I didn't follow any of
it. You have to listen. This is not for you.
He just outright lies.
Yeah, I know.
Well, are you guys have trouble thinking as fast as he talks? I think that's the problem. Why you guys always say that?
No, it's
You can't
just
think at all,
early.
Brandon. Mister, I'm going to post a link to a gravimeter because gyro. Go eat
Yeah,
another
you
fucking
can't put
sandwich.
you can't
fat
put two
cunt.
and
It's
two
not
together
that we
and
can't. It's
figure out
not
why
that we
I posted
can't
that.
understand
That's so
what
sad,
he's
'cause I
saying.
thought more of you.
No, it's not that we
You
can't
can't
understand what he's
explain why you
saying.
posted a gravimeter, you
Let me
retard.
finish. Let me finish
I
this point,
explained
Curve.
it 5 times so far.
It's not that we can't understand what he's saying. It's that he's taking words and he's stringing them together in sequence, but that sequence of words does not convey a cognitive meaning.
It actually does. That's why I think it's
No,
a
it
failure
doesn't.
on your guys' part.
Go
Not
ahead and
his. 'Cause when
explain
I
it.
listened to
Yeah,
11.
explain it to
I
a
understand what
4-year-old
he's
then.
saying.
Explain it to a 5-year-old what he's saying. Go ahead.
Well, I wasn't listening that closely this time, actually. But in general,
You piece of shit, you.
Explain
Okay,
to a
so-
5-year-old easy. Sally, space is a flowing river that is flowing around you and me, Sally. You and me
You
are
deserve a
objects that are
sweet kick
swimming
in
in
the
a sea
vagina
of
for that,
energy.
Brandon.
There is no such thing as a vacuum nothing, Sally. Space has to be a something that is flowing in and around you and me, Sally. And this is the absolute frame of reference that tells us that we're moving and the sea of energy that we tap into to move in the first place, Sally.
That's
Now go
sexist.
run along.
Yeah,
now.
and that's a wonderful thought mind experiment there. But now you have to turn that into something you can test. And you haven't.
And who's Sally?
Sally is the
Sally's the 5-year-old. It's the fantasy 5-year-old he has in his mind.
Oh, but that 5-year-old didn't understand all the other words apart from their name, Sally.
It's okay, little Sally.
How do
Right
we
now,
measure?
you're stupid. But one day you will make your mind stronger and structure it with facts that will let you know that I'm correct. But right now, this is just the
Lemon.
truth, and you're just going to have to accept it until you stop being stupid, get smarter, and
Lemon.
learn how to understand what
we-
I said. Okay, dear? Now run
Lemon.
along to kindergarten.
Well,
Okay.
how do we measure the sea of energy, Lemon?
Yes. There we go. How do we
How would I
test
go
this?
about doing that?
How do we test this idea?
I would like to measure the sea of energy. What units is this energy expressed in?
Gyroscope rotation per hour.
It would give Lemon a lot more credibility if he would come up with a model for his ether and show me the direction it's moving across the map so that I could compare it to the machinations of the gyroscope.
Moyak, why do you hate us so?
What was that?
I said, why do you hate us so?
What are you hearing?
Exactly, you've got shitty connection. Yep, you're in a tunnel.
If he's got a shitty connection, does he only get stalks?
The thing is that science has tried to detect an ether. They've actually done the work, and they haven't been able to find it. Because that's what they actually used to think, right? They used to think there must be a, what's the terminology? Luminous or luminescent ether. What's it called? How do you say it?
Luminiferous.
Luminiferous
ether.
Shining. Fancy word for shining. The shining ether, the light-bearing ether. It's the wavy, watery medium whose waves are what we interpret as light, electromagnetism, and all this other stuff. It's the thing that gives.
All right,
these
that's
waves.
something That's what I was asking about. I turned off the mower, so maybe you can hear me this time. Lemon, I would give you a lot of credence if you could help me out with the model of your ether wind that would explain the machinations of the gyroscope. In other words, show me a map and the direction of the ether wind that you purport, and how that all works in a coherent manner.
According to Aries' failure, it appears to be carrying the sun, moon, and stars by implication anyway, with one interpretation that I think is very consistent of Aries failure, so wouldn't we just
Would you
say
mind
that it
answering the
swirls
question?
east-west?
Doesn't that
Curve.
comparison
Say it
having people
swirls east to
explain to you
west.
what Aries failure
Hold on.
is?
Lemon, it's okay to take up time talking if you're
Curve, would we
responding to
say
what
that
he said. That's not what you're
Curve.
doing, Lemon. You
Okay,
did
then,
a 180 about base, and you're running away from what he said.
So,
now, can you
Curve,
address
would you
his
say that
question,
it
please?
goes? Yes, Curve, would you say that it goes east-west based off of Aries failure?
I wouldn't
That's
say
what I
a
was saying.
fucking thing about it, other than I think you're you're nuts for even thinking about it. But go ahead and explain it to Moyak.
So I would go with an east-west swirl over the Earth. How about that, Moyak? Is that good enough?
East-west swirl is nonsensical.
I think
Why,
first off,
if it's carrying the sun, moon, and stars, why?
I think because the gyroscope gives answers in X, Y, and Z coordinates, and you would have to explain it a little bit further than that. Because if I go up to the North Pole, it's still going east and west, but that gyroscope is doing a completely different motion. So I need a little bit better
What motion
explanation.
is the gyroscope making? I answered your
X, Y, and
question.
Z.
What gyroscope is it making at the North Pole? Then, if it's not east-west, what motion is it making?
You're gonna have to tell me. I need an explanation for how it moves.
I answered your question then.
You said
Okay?
it was spiraling.
You didn't
round
answer
and
mine.
round
I'm
last
not going to
time,
spur
Lemon.
on you, but I answered your
said it-
question.
You said
Okay,
it
it
was
would be-
spiraling round and round, Lemon, last time. You said it was going round and round like a
Lemon.
spiral.
It yaws. It goes only yaw at the North Pole and South Pole.
Lemon. As long as you've been here, you can't honestly still believe that Aries failure supports the ether theory. I mean, I know people have explained to you. I know people. Well, it actually was. It was a prediction trying to predict. It was actually a hypothesis saying that a water-field telescope versus an airfield telescope will have different stellar aberration, right? And then that didn't happen. So Aries' failure is that he didn't actually detect the ether. That's the failure.
But the experimental framework that they worked with was that the Earth was moving in the ether. If the Earth is not moving and it's carrying the sun, moon, and stars, it would still be valid by that interpretation. So why is that interpretation not justified? Why does the Earth have to move through the ether? Why?
Because we know the Earth is moving.
Based off of what?
Well, there is no ether.
Based off of what? This is where the rubber meets the road. Checking the experimental framework and checking it for validity. How do you
understand, Lemon?
Because I don't know movement with my feet. And these optical experiments are not showing 30 kilometers per second ether drift. Was necessary. So how do you know? If you cannot give me a justified answer, I'm going to have to go with the ether gently swirling over the flat unmoving.
I've been trying to give you an answer since you've asked it 3 times.
You've been buying time, and I'm getting frustrated.
I'm not
going to be
time.
silent.
Just shut your fucking mouth, and I'll tell you.
Can't even Google fast enough.
And a quick point, you're incapable of modeling this swirl. You just blurted out a stupid statement about east-west, which answers none of the issues or questions about your swirl.
So now I'll go ahead and tell you that Wolfie, I know you know who Wolfie is, and I know that you've already seen this, has done experiments where he's flown west with a scale, put a weight on the scale, and flown east with the same weight on the same scale, and shown that there's a difference in those weights, right? Flying at the same exact altitude, same exact speed. Why is there a difference? Why is there a difference, Lemon? What do you think that implies? What do you think that implies, Lemon? Come on, be honest. There's a larger centrifugal force acting upon the person in one direction, and a smaller centrifugal force acting upon the person in the other direction. And it depends on if you're flying in the direction that the Earth is spinning or flying against the spin. So yeah, we can do measurements on Earth to tell that we're moving. You just ignore me now? I guess you should.
He can't answer that. You know that. Why are you asking him such a
I
question?
mean, he's seen this experiment. Well, this is the thing that kind of like gets under my skin. I come back a year later. I know he's seen this experiment. I know we've talked about it before, and yet here he is pretending like he's never seen it, and this hasn't been explained to him before. We haven't answered this already. It's just it's a
Flat
delusion.
earthers can't learn.
Fucking delusion is what it is.
Yeah, but flat earthers can't learn and don't want to try. You know, I've done that experiment myself personally. I verified it myself.
Right.
You can't tell me that he hasn't been on an airplane before.
Right.
And he couldn't take some scales with it and check this for himself. Since he didn't, he has to take our word for it.
And of course, you can't take our word for it because we're, Illuminati liars or something. Some reason.
Well, it destroys his narrative. He knows it, so he can't acknowledge it. That's why he's not even answering you.
And where did he go? Think about that. He's done run away.
He runs as soon as there's any evidence.
No, we started yelling at him. He got grumpy. Speaking of shitbags, there's Chemo.
Hey, Chemo, how's that model of yours that says the Earth is flat?
Keep dangling the carrot there, Bob. You might get him to answer.
I really don't care if he does or doesn't.
Larry does.
They cannot dismiss the existence of the South Pole and satellites. I don't care what non-argument they want to pose. Denying sunrise, sunset, satellites, and the South Pole is a denial of reality. They want to talk about reality and observe phenomena. South Pole exists, satellites exist, sunrise, sunset, eclipses, and tides. You're done.
Well, I've got a great video of the eclipse from the 10th on my channel. And not only have I taken pictures of satellites, I suddenly found myself the proud owner of a 3-meter radio telescope. So I'll be able to actually track them a lot better.
He's surrounded, Lemon and Chemo and Jeremy, they're all surrounded by technology which is dependent on everything they refuse to accept. So if you want a demonstration of gravity, they're driving in manufactured items, they're getting in elevators with braking systems, they're getting on airplanes. You want a demonstration of magnetism and everything they deny. There is no way the sun can hover over a disk. We're done. The South Pole exists. Okay, we can move on to dimension, but you can't deal with the binary flat or curved or spherical. It's not something in between. There's no hybrid. It's a binary. It's not like it might be flat. No. South Pole exists, sunrise, sunset, eclipses, and tides.
Well, it's a game to them. They're just playing this little contrarian game because for their own reasons, they want to maintain this narrative. But it's not a serious conversation. It's not a scientific conversation. In fact, it's not an adult conversation.
Yeah, because his number one comeback is, I'm looking down the hallway in an office building. Yeah, okay.
Which was built square to the normal line of gravity. Yes, that office building.
If those footings weren't set correctly, it wouldn't be standing.